welcome to the D3D4 Football Podcast with me, your host, James Richards. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another D3D4 Football Podcast, the podcast covering the bottom two divisions in English football, Division 3 and Division 4, also known as League 1 and 2 in modern parlance. So we cover them every week on this podcast and through our Twitter page and our website. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you follow it. And if you don't, you should be, because it's hopefully a great resource brought to you by League 1 and 2 fans. We run a Patreon campaign, which you can support us with for as little as 80p a month. And I have to say thank you very much for everyone who has pledged and helped us so far since we started the campaign. Latest patrons, Liam Rody Weaver, Chris Pilarski and Chris Miller. Big thank you to you guys for pledging to support the website and the podcast. All the money goes to help keep this going, keep the costs down, and help us bring you League 1 and 2 coverage every single week. I do apologise for my voice. It's a bit hoarse after shouting loudly within the away crowd at Blackpool yesterday. Ended up getting back about 2 a.m. I was at that game with the man who joins me on this podcast now, Chris Stringer. How you doing, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. My voice is a little hoarse, mostly from shouting at the referee.
He was pretty terrible, wasn't he?
It's quite impressive that I was there as a neutral myself. I was trying to get into it a bit with the Oxford fans, but there pretty much as a neutral, and the referee was just so infuriating.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we come to the game. But it's indicative, I think, of referees at this level. I did see Trevor Kettle's wonderful performance as well.
He's always good. I think I mentioned him to you yesterday as one that I always like to watch out for. There
are a few, but Darren Drysdale was the one at Blackpool yesterday. Some very strange decisions, I have to say, for both teams. I'm not saying this as an Oxford fan disappointed that we lost, because actually came away feeling quite positive from that game. But we have a lot to cover. So we'll start, as always, in League 1. League 1. We're starting at a game that didn't go ahead because Bury yet again had their match cancelled and suspended. Now, Chris, we spoke about this yesterday briefly at the football, hearing that Steve Dale is basically holding out on the sale of the club. He wants £5 million to sell that club, 2 million of which will cover the debt as part of the CVA agreement, and £3 million for himself for the trouble, apparently.
I mean, that's a lot of trouble, isn't it?
It's really sad. To be honest, it's really a desperate situation, and there should be some way of people getting involved, because it appears, doesn't it, that he is happy now to just let the club be kicked out of the EFL.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to sort of, maybe I'm overanalyzing it a little bit, but he said one way or another, Bury FC will survive. And the way I interpret that is he's quite happy for the club to fall out of the EFL, but the business will survive.
I don't know.
That's, there will be a Bury FC, but where they'll play, who knows? I mean, I don't really know how it works if they get kicked out of the league at this point. Is it as simple as just dropping down to step 6, is it, that you go to in the non-league system when you're already, 4 games in?
I have no idea how it will end up, and I think it's outrageous that he's allowed to get away with this. He should be forced to sell the club for his initial investment plus the cost of the debt. That's what he should be forced to sell the club for. Why should he stand to make such a huge profit out of...
I don't get why you'd want... I mean, because the reason he bought it for £1 is quite a sort of reasonably common thing in business, where you agree to take on the debts, but you don't pay any. You pay a peppercorn fee for the club.
I don't get it. I do not get it. I just have nothing but solidarity and heartfelt compassion for the Bury fans who are going through this. If you haven't heard our discussion we did last week with Bury fan Peter Taylor, it's on our YouTube channel. I will direct you there to have a listen, because he does give a very good account of how Bury fans are feeling right now regarding this situation. But it does look pretty bleak, unfortunately. But getting back to the football, and let's start with the game that we went to, Chris, Blackpool versus Oxford. Both had very decent starts to the season. Blackpool, 2 wins, of course, against Bristol Rovers and then Southend. But Oxford, started this game without Tarek Fosu, Malachi Napa as well with a broken leg, so 2 players that have pace and trickery going forward were missing. And obviously new signing Dan Agai was not present, and also Matt Taylor, who we are hoping would get brought in before this game. It hasn't gone ahead as of yet, so we're not sure what's happening with that one.
Presumably he's the player that Carl Robinson was supposed to be meeting with after the game yesterday.
Let's hope so, because let's be honest, as a match, Oxford were the better team throughout almost the entire game. But
70% possession, nearly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be harsh on Blackpool. I mean, we met Blackpool fans, we talked to them for the vlog that will be out later today, hopefully, certainly this evening, I would hope. And they were saying that it was a poor performance from Blackpool. They rely on their defence, who I thought were excellent. You know, they really did recover situations well when they got in trouble. And obviously they have Jack Olnwick in goal, who's an excellent keeper. But Oxford were brilliant. You know, I haven't seen us play that well for a long time. I have to say that's the best we've played this season, despite the result. Rob Dickey was sensational.
Oh, he was superb all game. He reminded me a little bit of watching James Tarkowski in his developing years old. He was just so cool on the ball. Was never panicked. He never looked panicked at a single moment. He was winning everything that came to him in the air. He's just an all-round sensational defender that I think you said it yesterday. He looks a lot like a player that will go on to a higher division.
Yeah, he does. He's bulked up as well over the summer. Certainly a big difference between his physicality this season and for this time last year. So that's a very good sign. We do need, I think, maybe another defender. I mean, Moore came on in the end and played up front, which highlighted our lack of depth. But Blackpool's defenders in Tilt and Edwards were superb. Nangele and Alfonso were a handful. They missed Spearing. I think in midfield he was certainly a presence they lacked. They lacked a bit of creativity going forward. But they're a very well-drilled, organised side under Simon Grayson.
Yeah, but you summed it up, didn't you, by saying it's a very Simon Grayson setup.
It is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, what did you make of them? Do you think they'll make the grade and meet sort of some of that expectation that is developing there of a top six place?
I mean, I think it said everything yesterday that was a disappointing performance for Blackpool fans because defensively they were solid. I think you're right in saying they perhaps lack something a little bit creatively, and that will change when they've got some players back in the squad. But yeah, I think that they're a side that will certainly be in or around the playoffs come the end of the season. But I'd say the same about Oxford, having watched them, if they can get a real handful up front in there, because so often during the game it was just the final third. They weren't quite getting the final touch to get a goal.
No, I mean, we hit the post twice, and Jamie Mackie works very hard, but he's not a goal scorer. Ben Woodburn looks like he will probably do very well if he can just get some confidence and find the net. He was very unlucky. A couple of occasions he saw shots saved by Olnwick and hit the post as well. Hansen hit the bar. I mean, Hansen, I'm a little bit surprised we paid money for. I think he looks
a
like
significant sum as well.
Yeah, he looks a little bit like I don't want to say the weak link, because I think Oxford fans, as supporters, we tend to get on top of a player if he has a bad run, and that then compounds the player's confidence in the issue. But at times he was okay, but he does look like he lacks a certain quality, which, due to the good players around him, makes him look a little bit limited. So, but the referee was poor. The penalty, I saw it back in the highlights. I mean, it literally was he just sort of shoulder charge. I mean, it was hardly any contact, really.
I don't think it was Dickey challenging him onto it, and it just looks like there's a little bit of contact, just standard, attacker and defender contact, and Nandula is that you pronounce his name?
Nandula,
just hit the floor.
So that penalty obviously gave him a 2-0. We went and got Chris Cadden was superb, by the way. Our right back really looks good.
Yeah, it was.
And Josh Ruffles, to be fair, going forward in that second half down our side of the pitch, really put in some good balls. We lacked that target, that focus, that focal point to make the most of them. But the referee then in the second half, right at the beginning of the second half, didn't give a penalty to Blackpool when they blatantly should have had one. I think it was James Henry who just elbowed their guy in the head.
It was a robust challenge.
Yeah, robust, yeah. It was a blatant penalty. Didn't give it simply because he knew he made a mistake with the first one. I don't like that kind of refereeing. Although, I suppose you could say it's justice because it evens itself out. It doesn't work for me. 2 wrongs don't make a right. It was a terrible refereeing performance. He let everything get on top of him. And yeah, it kind of spoiled.
There were 2 chances for Oxford as well. I think there was certainly one that I thought was a Stonewall penalty for Oxford, and a second one which I've seen given.
Or was that the handball? Was it?
I think there was a handball, and there was a shove right in the back of I can't remember who it was now. It might have been Ruffles.
Quite possibly, yeah. But overall, the reaction of the Oxford fans at the end said it all. They gave the team an absolutely rousing reception because it was a brilliant performance. Going forward, Oxford, if we can get this striker in, we're going to have a good season. There's no way we should be struggling. And I'm feeling very positive. We've got some good technical players in that midfield. We've got fullbacks who I think we might need a backup for Ruffles. I'm not entirely convinced we've got that. But I think, I think overall, it's just getting someone who can put the ball in the net and we'll be fine. But Blackpool will be absolutely fine. They've got Spearing, who wasn't playing, and Jamie Devitt to come back into this team. So not only do they have the endurance and the durability, they do have a lot of creativity to come back into the side. Sunderland and Portsmouth. Clearly, Jack Ross listens to this podcast because he changed to the 4-2-3-1. Maguire came in. Maguire scored the winner. McGeady set him up. Much better. And something that I think gives them a platform now to work on going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what we spoke of so much over the last few weeks is the need for them to play a system that fits the players they've got. Because obviously they've been playing with wing backs, which was a little bit weird. He's brought Wyke into the team instead of Grigg. I think he's not keen on Grigg at the moment, and perhaps it could be a confidence issue for Will Grigg, or perhaps he's still not entirely sure how to properly utilise him in the system they're playing. Apparently Willis and Otzerk had a really good partnership at the back, and I think it'll settle the fans at Sunderland because it's been a bit of a poor start for them, all things considered, and a win against ultimately probably their main promotion rivals will settle things down a lot.
And hopefully Jack Ross can learn that this system, he can trust it now. I think he just doesn't trust his opinions on getting these players in the side together. And I think he has to have a bit of a run at it now. I think, what I don't want to see, and I'm sure Sunderland fans would agree, is if the next game he plays this same system and they go back and it doesn't work, don't then immediately chop and change it. Keep with it now for the next 10 games. Give the players a chance to really excel and get used to the system and go from there, because they beat a very talented Portsmouth side, and Portsmouth look very threatening. They're going to be right up there. You can see when Marquez gets his sharpness back. Marcus Harness, I personally prefer Marcus Harness to Jamal Lowe. That might be questionable, but I just think technically he's a better player and will create more chances and doesn't just rely on pace, which Jamal Lowe has in abundance. But I think Portsmouth they'll dust themselves off. They'll know that this was a disappointing result from their point of view. But Sunderland now have to just focus, I think, on building from this platform. Because again, not a bad start to the season now when you really look at it. A couple of draws and a win, it gives them a really good, I suppose, a base to try and challenge and move forward. You had some conversations with Richard, who's a Sunderland fan. What did he make of that result?
He was really pleased with the performance overall. He said, as I mentioned before, the defence looked a lot stronger. He was really pleased with the way that they'd set up nicely. I mean, I think he personally feels a lot more confident having seen that Ross was willing to change the system back to a 4-2-3-1 from that 3-5-2, and was much more encouraged by the creative play and the fact that they managed to get 2 goals. I mean, I think he immediately sent me a message saying you can smoke your 1-1 pipe with that one.
Yeah. No, that's cool. It's a good result for Sunderland. One team that I was pleased to see get off the mark with a good performance and a late victory was Doncaster. They beat Fleetwood, who we've been very impressed with so far this season. They beat them by 3-2. I was asked on Twitter if Sadlier can make the Irish setup. I certainly think he could. I think he looks a really good player. Very, again, sharp against Fleetwood. Impressive performance. Fleetwood look like they'll be right up there. They'll be disappointed, though, with the sort of calamitous own goal at the end, because
it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
Well, it's a bad mistake, really.
Yeah.
That's communication for me, because there's no one near him.
Yeah.
And that's where someone has to take responsibility and just like make a big call, make a big shout. The goalie potentially could have come for that.
That's what stood out to me is, I mean, maybe the goalkeeper should have come to it, but he should have been, he's got to be yelling where it's got to go. He's got to be saying, put it out for a corner, hoof it up the pitch, whatever. He's just got to be vocal with it.
Yeah, but really, that will be a massive disappointment to Joe Barton, who I think will be very pleased with the overall performance of his side. Doncaster, of course, we're not sure what to expect from them. James Coppinger, fantastic player, continues to be a talisman, continues to show the technical ability, and then actually, forget his age, because that doesn't factor for him. He's a very fit player.
Yeah.
And
what a servant.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll continue to be a massive player for that club. But a brilliant victory from Doncaster. Good to see them score 3 times as well, which shows that they've got some potency still in that side. I think a lot of goals will come from all over the pitch, and maybe Herbie Kane could be coming back as well, so that'd be massive. And for those detractors of Lincoln City's football, they've been superb this season. I think this is, in terms of the technical build-up play that they produced for the goals in this, one of the finest displays I've seen them produce probably over the last couple of seasons, just for the way that they passed the ball around. I mean, the goals between Toffolo and Jackie Payne were excellent.
And so many goal scorers as well. I think it's 8 different goal scorers they've already had this season.
Yeah, and that's a testament to the recruitment, because they've got players who, I mean, when you rely on one player, you're very vulnerable. Whereas Lincoln, you can see them having a couple of injuries and still being able to cope. Now, of course, much like Oxford, it's a case of they've got 13 or 14 excellent first team players. It will then be a bit ropey if they should get some injuries. Now, maybe Danny Cowley will call on some favours and get a few loan players in without, he's got no more money left according to Danny. The budget's pretty tight. But that first team and the couple of players on that bench who come on to affect the game, like Akinde, like Andrade, like those players that we saw yesterday who could brush aside a rather disappointing Southend outfit, they will be very important going forward. And I think Lincoln, we predicted them 3rd. Now, it's so early, I don't want to get carried away, but it's a great start. You can't ask for more than that after 3 games. Southend, perhaps not as bad as the scoreline suggests, but
it's worrying though. I mean, conceding 4 against any team. I know Lincoln was superb yesterday, but conceding 4 is very worrying. And I just don't see where the quality's coming from. I know it's early doors, but I just don't see the quality in that side.
They severely lack, don't they, in quite a few areas?
Pretty much every area on the pitch. They lack. I mean, there's only 2 sides that have yet to pick. Well, Bury a side that have yet to pick up any points this season, and it's Southend and it's Oldham, and they're 2 sides that severely lack quality.
Yeah, I think tactical confusion was one of the sort of things that Southend fans were saying. They looked like the players didn't quite know what they were supposed to be doing. That's disappointing. And the fact that they've conceded, 7 goals in the last, was it 2 league games?
I think it's 7 goals this season so far or something. Oh no, they've got a -7 goal difference, sorry.
Yeah, so really poor start to the campaign from them. The other big team, obviously, that we'll be watching closely to see how they adapt to this level is Ipswich. They got a 2-2 draw, a late goal, rallying for a point against Peterborough.
It sounds like a hell of a game.
Yeah, it was. Well, I've only seen the highlights, to be fair, and I'll probably watch far more extended highlights of this game later on in the week. But what's important for Ipswich, though, is that when you're not playing at your best or when you're up against it, you still manage to get a point. And
yeah,
I think that could be quite important. But for Peterborough, Chris, they're still struggling to see things through.
Yeah, it's the same old Peterborough problem, I guess. I mean, because I was following the scores on my phone during the game yesterday, and it was something they were saying Peterborough desperately need a win. They desperately need to get that character, and they've gone 2-1 up. They've turned around a 1-0 deficit to go 2-1 up, saved a penalty, which must have given them so much confidence, and then it's a 94th minute slip up and Chambers scores.
Bad marking for that goal as well.
Really, I mean, it's far too easy for him to get that goal. It's worrying still for Peterborough, but there's a lot of sign of encouragement, I think, there. So if they stick with what they're doing, maybe a little bit still to do in the transfer window, possibly. We'll see over the coming days. But there's a lot more confidence, I think, for them to take out of that game.
Yeah, and Mo Issa getting his first goal will be very big for his confidence because he is a technically good player. I think maybe a bit more bite. Am I saying right here in midfield? Someone who can.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I'm not sure I see a player necessarily who will dominate the central areas. I've seen them play twice against Oxford in a week and lose both times. So for them, it's important that they get a little bit more strength, I think, in that central area because they've got creative players and they've got goal scorers. Now it's a case, I think, of just getting that little bit extra in there to reinforce that side. Ipswich, they need reinforcements as well. Don't get me wrong. I think their squad is still a bit thin, but when you've got James Norwood, who, yes, he missed a penalty, but he scored a goal and a sort of a poacher's effort. He'll continue to do that, and they've got the players of, Skuse, I think, has had a good start to the season. Not someone we've mentioned very much, but he is an important player for them.
Yeah.
And I think they'll do very well, and that will be seen as a good point for them. And by the way, 4,014 away fans went to that game.
Yeah, I'd never have actually mentally had this pegged down as a derby. And then I was watching the highlights and realised, oh yeah, actually, I can see it. And Ipswich Town fans turn up in huge numbers. I mean, 4,000, that must be bigger than the majority of attendances in the league below them.
It probably is. I mean, in terms of, I think that was the limit that they could get. So there was fans who wanted to go that couldn't. So
hugely impressive.
Yeah, it's impressive. I mean, they're a big club at this level, of course, but the biggest away attendance probably, though, technically was Coventry because they are playing in Birmingham at the moment. They got a very good result against a poor Bristol Rovers side. Chris, again, Wesley Jabello is an important player. He looks like he'll be very good. But their two fullbacks are particularly catching attention at the moment. Mason, of course, who we know all about from last season. By the way, nice to see Shipley get another goal. I think he's got the ability to score far more than he perhaps has done over the last couple of seasons. But Fintaki Darbo as well, and Mason, very impressive players for Coventry. And again, another excellent summer of recruitment is starting to really shine through.
Yeah, and this is another thing I said to you yesterday. It's hugely impressive the way that Coventry build their squad, because you see, we talk of these crisis clubs in League 1 and 2, and the thing that gets hit is the playing staff. And Coventry, credit to the manager, has managed to continue to recruit superbly. And I mean, it must be one of the most creative sides, not necessarily the technically best in the league, but one of the most creative sides in the league.
Yeah, I think they've got good solid players everywhere. I mean, Michael Rose at the back is starting to look like he can be the next impressive player for the club. Obviously, next to McFadzean, who is hugely experienced, that will help him no end. But the other thing is, of course, for Coventry, they're dealing superbly well with not actually playing in Coventry. So,
yeah.
But Jacob Hicks, Bristol Rovers fan, gave me the lowdown on their team. Really narrow, no width, lacking creativity. The average, he showed me a shot of the average positions of the players, far too bunched in the middle of the park. A go at the base, Bennett trying to sort of support further forward, but just not looking good at all at the moment. Luke Leahy, Walsall fans will not be surprised to hear, really struggled to defend against Jabello. I mean, he is not a good defensive fullback, and Walsall fans will be able to testify for that. And they need to start playing far better, or this will be a difficult season for them. Now, the saving grace, of course, is the fact that there's only going to be two teams really going down this season, because it's pretty much looking a foregone conclusion.
Yes.
For Bolton, and whether or not Bury even get to start the season remains to be seen. A couple of other teams that perhaps have had poor starts and we knew they would struggle relative to the rest of the teams due to their budget. AFC, Wimbledon, Accrington 1-1, Chris, yesterday.
Yeah, and it doesn't sound like, I'm not going to see the highlights and little bits on Twitter, it doesn't sound like it was a classic of a game. I think both sides will have been hoping to get more out of this, because ultimately these are the important fixtures when you're two sides with low budgets in the league, and come the end of the season I think they'll both be struggling.
Yeah, disappointing for Wimbledon, especially considering I think Accrington went down to 10 men, didn't they? And
yes.
then to concede
yeah, I mean,
at home.
There's they're 1-0 up. They've got 30 minutes to go. They're sending off. They're at home, as you say. Wimbledon fans must have thought, they really had a good shot, and then to concede just a few moments after Francis Angle got sent off.
Yeah, not great. Rochdale and Shrewsbury, dogged performance from both sides. Defensively, Shrewsbury much better than they were in midweek, but again, struggling with the goals. I expect, if you listen to Southcast, there could be another striker joining before the transfer window shuts, and I wouldn't be surprised because they do need one. I fear, like we said in our pre-season preview, where are the goals coming from? That's our only concern, and they have struggled to break teams down. Again, Rochdale, I have to say that they've had a very impressive start to the season. Definitely offside, that goal that they scored, so yes. You can't really complain about that. But 0-0.
That was actually really bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen a goal like that offside.
I mean, was he was sort of half off the pitch, wasn't he? When
he was sort of going towards it, and he just sort of stuck his foot out and knocked it in, and they expected somehow he wouldn't be offside.
Yeah, what I was going to say, wasn't it going in anyway?
Well, that's what I thought. It's one of those when you're playing Sunday League and your mate decides to mess with you, it gets called out, and you have words in the changing room afterwards.
Yeah, I think Ian Henderson maybe can be forgiven for having that desperate desire to increase his goal scoring record. He's such a natural.
He doesn't score many at this level.
No, not many. One side that tend to not score a huge amount of goals are Wycombe Wanderers, but a 3-2, that might be unfair actually, but a 3-2 win yesterday.
What a cracker. This is another we were following dead closely on Twitter, because it was just sort of like, oh, Wycombe are beating MK Dons. Oh, 1-1, 2-1. Oh,
missed penalty.
Maybe a missed penalty. What's going on?
Who's the referee? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, but a very important win for Wycombe, because I don't think MK Dons are a bad team whatsoever. They uncharacteristically made some mistakes, which Paul Tisdale will, I'm sure, play down, but will be internally a bit frustrated about, because...
Without imagine. These sides are normally very well drilled.
Yeah, but like we say, every now and again there are mistakes in the side, but to have quite so many in the same game against a rival, I suppose you'd say, because you'd want to beat your Buckinghamshire rival if you're MK Dons. Wycombe, though, fantastic drive, fantastic effort, aggressive performance. Fans will be absolutely delighted, and of course they've got this ability to keep going right till the end. Wycombe, they do it all the time, and I'm really pleased for Wheeler, because his goal was not only technically brilliant, but he needs to be playing all the time, because I think he's a fantastic player at this level and deserves huge credit. The other game, of course, at this level was Tranmere v Bolton. Don't want to dampen Tranmere fans' exuberance after an impressive 5-0 win, but
if you're going to score 5 in a game, it's going to be this.
Yeah, I mean, this is why Coventry fans were probably so disappointed that they, at the moment, playing Bolton, despite all the credit that Phil Parkinson and the young lads deserve, it's a gimme. You've got to beat them, and it was an impressive performance indeed from Tranmere going forward.
Impressive. I think one thing we have to touch on is the Bolton support. It would be so easy just to not bother turning up, and they took well over 1,000 fans. I mean, that away end behind the goal was full to their allocation. It's really impressive stuff.
Yeah, I think it was about 2,000, wasn't it? It was a huge. But I mean, Bolton, I just hope it all gets sorted so they can start bringing in players, because of course they won't have long to do it, and they've got just 2 senior players I think left now. And a credit to those players for sticking with the club and keep going. So I did say this was the last game. Actually, not the last game, because Rotherham picked up yet another impressive away performance, battling away to a 1-0 win against a Burton side that I think I like Burton. I think technically they've got in Scott Fraser and Templeton some very good players. Obviously, we know all about Lucas Akins up front and the way that they can, I think, more than compete at this level. But Rotherham, who are a side that came down last season, Chris, will be wanting to get back up quickly. Every sign so far points to the fact that they won't be far off. Yeah,
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. They had a little bit of a blip against Lincoln last week, but Lincoln put in a very good performance. Absolutely, they'll be right up there. I think they've got quality in their side. They're a side that really plays for each other and plays for their manager, who is, I just have so much admiration for Warren. Excellent as a player and excellent as a manager. He just loves the game so much, and yeah, I think they'll do pretty well this season.
Yeah, I think their defensive players take a lot of credit. Ian Bradley, who was our roving reporter, actually was at Salford yesterday, but he thinks Ola Sunday, the American international fullback, who obviously they got from Manchester United, looks like a right good find. Woods, again, superb at centre-half. And yeah, going forward, we know all about their threats going forward. They can score goals, so an impressive away performance from the Millers. Right, let's jump down into League Two now.
League Two.
And let's start with Mansfield Town's win away at Carlisle. We'll start here because it's an important result for Mansfield. They've struggled to exert their pressure, their quality on teams this season. Obviously, I analysed their game against Morecambe last weekend and very disappointed with their defensive lapses, their defensive mistakes. I have to say, Logan, the goalkeeper, getting far too much stick for my liking, doesn't deserve it. Maybe not had the best of performances at times, but he's still, I think, a very decent keeper. And actually, Mansfield fan Carl, thank you for your email, Carl. Really nice to get an update of everything to do with the Stags. He was saying, I think, in agreement really with that sentiment, that it's not really fair for the keeper. Christian Pearce, still a brilliant defender. And going forward, Danny Rose is well and truly back, Chris.
Yeah, and just at the time Mansfield really needed it. They really need to get their season going now. He's popped up with a really good goal. And they dominated yesterday, it seems, by a lot of accounts. I mean, Carlisle fans, I think, have come away a little bit disappointed with their performances, and I think they're a little bit worried with how they've started their season. But yeah, I think Rose scoring is going to be huge for Mansfield this season.
Yeah, and I think they've got Maynard and Cook who can also contribute.
I mean, it's an incredible squad they've got, Mansfield. We said in our pre-season podcast, this has to be the season that they go up. The stars, if you like, have aligned. They need to make the most of this.
I think they miss Melly's creativity. He obviously was suspended.
That's not like Mellis.
Yeah, and also Craig Davies injured, and he's still, a good player at this level. I think he's
an excellent. I mean, I think he's used a little bit as a squad player at Mansfield, and to have that sort of quality on your bench is hugely impressive. I mean, he was at Oldham at the start of last season, and he looked for the first half of the season like an excellent striker.
Well, I remember him breaking into the Oxford side way back in the day when he was a scrawny teenager, before we sold him to Verona of all teams. And yeah, he was very good then. Disappointed that we let him go. It doesn't surprise me that we struggled and went down that season after letting the players like Hackett, himself, Bradbury, all these guys we had go. So yeah, I think he's another option. Obviously Hayden White, as long as they can get him back quickly, I think he is a better fullback than Gordon, who actually, from reports I saw, had an excellent game at right wing back yesterday. So, and a slightly cynical performance, I saw Carlisle fans suggest. If that's the case, then you can only say fair play to Mansfield, because they've got to find a way of winning games, and sometimes you have to do some of the dark arts well to do that.
I mean, that was our tactic in the geology team last season.
Yes,
just you've got to explicit house the game.
yeah, that's it. Your geology guys. I can't really imagine a load of geologists playing football to a particularly dark arts level, but you guys who spend a lot of time in caves, you've got to wonder.
Well, we had a bit of a rocky start to the season.
But no, a very good and important result. I think Carlisle fans' disappointment will be probably compounded by the excellent win in the midweek against Barnsley. So that's something for them. Crewe, another good, solid performance. Also disappointing by all accounts, but another 1-0 win, another important result for Crewe, who got off to that poor start. That's a nice victory for them to make it 2-2. So, and a clean sheet against a side like Walsall, who are looking for another striker. I think they've done quite well though in the transfer window with Lavery. I think he'll be an important player for them. But yeah, we'll see how they do across sort of a bigger spectrum of games, because early days for Darryl Clark for sure. Colchester, very shocked, Chris, that they have struggled in the results department so far this season. I think they've got a good squad, but it was a very poor second half performance by all accounts.
Yeah, I think this was the big surprise for me. We've spoken so highly of the way Colchester are. They've got a good squad. They've got a good setup, behind the scenes, well managed. And it's just not quite clicked for them, and I'm not entirely sure why. Cambridge will be delighted to get a win because we've got them. I think we put them in the relegation zone even, which Oldham are doing their best to replace them there. So they've made a very good start. Colchester need to book their ideas up soon.
I think they will be a little bit of pressure just given the quality they've got if they don't start picking up a couple of results. And this one obviously. Cambridge getting a bit of revenge for that defeat at the end of last season at the Abbey, where Kane Vincent-Young, who obviously appears to be off to Ipswich, scored that late winner. And so there's a bit of, I suppose Cambridge fans will say, just desserts for their rivals. Swindon top, Exeter second, early days, but both sides looking very good so far. Swindon impressive, picking up a certain man you know quite well in Owen Doyle, Chris, and he... Oh dear, yeah, I've got some hankies.
I miss him so much.
I'll pass you some Kleenex because at the end of the day he hit the post, didn't he? I think in the game, and also flicked home a delightful equaliser. Big signing for Richie Wellens.
Big signing. It continues his recruitment policy of signing players that he's either worked with at Oldham or are transfer targets, and it's working very, very well for him.
It does show what Oldham sort of potentially had and have thrown away. I mean, we know some of the players that Oldham have looked at and decided for some reason not to sign so far this season. And I just, compared to what you've got in the squad...
It makes me want to scream because you hear rumours about us wanting to sign players on big money, but then you also hear at the same time we've not signed this player or that player because we can't afford them. So we'd rather pay money to a gamble from the French third division than we would a tried and proven player in League One or League Two, and it just makes me want to scream so much.
Before we get into deep tears of despair with Oldham, we will say though, fair play to both Exeter and Swindon for having an excellent start to the campaign.
Two excellent squads.
Yeah, really, really good depth in both teams. Really good managers, I think, as well. Matt Taylor deserves huge credit for taking over from Paul Tisdale after such a iconic tenure at St James's Park from Tisdale, and it's been I think it must always be difficult to take over, as we've seen at Manchester United, from a manager who's built a legacy. But he's done a fantastic job so far, and as has Richie Wellens in his recruitment. They chased Doyle all summer, they finally got it done.
Well, I mean, Wellens is a superb manager. I wrote an article when he first took over at Swindon, saying I thought he'd be a real success, and I got laughed at a bit by Oldham fans. But I think he knows exactly what he wants from his players. He plays exciting football, so even when you might lose a game, you're going away feeling fairly content. Where he failed at Oldham was heavily linked to what was going on behind the scenes. I think they've got an excellent squad and they've got an excellent young, exciting manager. And there's nothing really stopping Swindon this season.
Maybe not. We struggled to place them in our preview pod. I think we perhaps should have put them a lot higher, but we'll see. It's early days still. Plymouth lost 1-0 to Newport. Newport 13 games now. I think it is unbeaten in the league. It's a club record. Fairly dogged first half, but they brought on, I think it was Abrahams at half time, and he changed the game. Again, a great tactical awareness from Mike Flynn to turn the tide in his side's favour against a Plymouth side full of quality. Obviously, King made that brilliant save in the first half, but not Newport County doing themselves hugely proud. I mean, they've got a squad there that I think we put them very highly. We rated them very highly in our pre-season preview for good reason. They've not done anything to dissuade me that that's where exactly we should have put them. Obviously, Carl Howkins, big defender. Nice to see him score and nice to see him get a bit of a run, because I think he hasn't impressed me in the games I've seen him at other clubs when he's been on loan. But Mike Flynn obviously sees something in him, and that's a good sign. That's obviously a good sign. He
came on as a sub, didn't he? Because I think Dimitri went off injured.
Yeah, that's a big loss if he's out for any length of time, because I'm a big fan of his defensive ability.
I think it is a big loss, but as you say, it's meant that Hawkins has been able to come on and seemingly has put in a good performance and got the winning goal. So, sure, it's a big blow for Dimitri, but that I wouldn't be too disheartened if you've got Hawkins in behind if you can put in more performances like that.
Yeah, they'll be very pleased. Newport, Plymouth, again, I don't think they'll be hugely worried by a single defeat because they play quite well.
Yeah. They're a good team. They're a good squad. It's another good manager. I'm not worried at all about Plymouth.
Bradford, though, the team that a lot of people touted to be right up there, it's hard to rate them on this performance because, of course, the defending was an absolute joke. I mean, yes, Clayton Donaldson finished brilliantly, but I've never seen a sort of a fullback get the ball on the touchline. No one closed him down. He plays an over-the-top ball simply into the edge of the box where there is a player completely unmarked and a defence has gone.
And onside. How is he onside?
Well, it looked like he was played on by Mills, didn't it, in the footage?
And Sonny Seffel, I mean, he was having a cup of tea on the sidelines or something. Who knows where he was?
He looks like he's a dreadful defender.
He went on low. I don't get how because we've got our recruitment policy of signing people from the French, particularly the French leagues and other European leagues. We've brought him in. We've sent him on loan to Ashton United, who play in the 6th tier. I think they're in the National League North. Might be mistaken. One league either way. I can't remember exactly. He's gone on loan there, played 2 games, deemed not good enough, sent back, and now he's our first choice centre half, ahead of Jamie Stott, who won the league with a team in the same league as Ashton United. Figure that one out.
Well, figure out how he's in the team just based on his performances, though. Regardless of last season, his positioning is he doesn't have any. That's the problem.
It's like when you go to watch if you ever watch under 15, under 14 games, and you can see defenders are still struggling to find their feet really in their positional sense. It's like watching that, but this is a man who's a professional. He's being paid for a full-time professional contract at a well-established football league club.
It's embarrassing, and you've got to get David Wheater back. You've got to get the chap from Burton, whose name is
Thomas Eggert.
Yeah, so Thomas Eggert. So you've got a couple of players who could come back in.
But I mean, Eggert's a good few weeks away from fitness. He's only just started training with the club after we signed him whilst he's been injured. Wheater, I mean, who knows what's going on? You hear rumours that he's already had a bit of a clash with the owner, but it is only rumours. I'm speechless.
Not good for a podcast, but indeed understandable. Bradford, though, still lack a bit of quality in midfield. I fear that game probably masks the fact that they still need to add something to that squad. But with Doyle going out on loan, obviously that will free up the wages.
He was on the programme as well, Doyle.
Yeah, well, obviously it was such a late move, wasn't it? That it probably was already done and dusted in terms of the printers for that one. But yeah, I think Bradford will be very happy to see Vaughan and Donaldson start to have that chemistry. I think removing Doyle from the equation will help them.
Yeah,
I think it will also help them by getting in a proper creative midfielder. I think that's what they need now.
Yeah, I think, as you say, it's hard to judge it too much because they're playing a very, very poor side at the moment, which pains me to say that, but it's true. But it's confidence, I think, even if you can only beat what's put in front of you, and they've convincingly beat us. And that, Vaughan and Donaldson seem to have linked up quite well. I think Oldham fans were quite impressed with them both as well. So, it's hard to say too much from it, but it's a start. It's a really good start for Bradford now, and I think they'll go forwards with confidence from this.
One last positive, though, for Oldham is your winger, the young chap.
Dylan Fage, I think he's...
Fage. He was excellent, apparently, in the games that he played against Blackburn and now Bradford. Even Bradford fans suggesting that he was excellent. So that's at least a positive. You might have found a player that you can sort of develop and make a big profit from, which is, I suppose, why Abdullah is signing all these young French players. But
it's his only revenue stream, really. He doesn't own anything.
Yeah, strange. Very strange situation. We'll be probably having a chat about Oldham specifically on our YouTube channel.
And I'll hopefully have an article out later today or tomorrow.
indeed. So that will be something to keep an eye on. Let's move on to some other teams. Morecambe and Cheltenham 0-0. Not much to discuss here, though I have to say I've been very impressed with Alessandra and how he started the season for Morecambe. Unlucky in this one, hitting the stanchion with a rasping drive. But from what I've seen of Morecambe, I think they've got a trio of players going forward who are very impressive. Sullivan, if he can keep fit, looks excellent, as does Alessandra. And I think
I've always really liked Alessandra, and it's always surprised me that he's not got onto bigger things.
He needs to run in a first team. He tends to always be sort of the sub, doesn't he?
He came through the youth academy at Oldham, and we gave him a spell quite early in his career when he had a partnership with Lee Hughes. And Lee Hughes, obviously, in stature, not particularly big, but sort of plays as a bit of a big man up front. He partnered up so well. And that's one of the most exciting sort of partnerships I think I've seen at Oldham. And it always surprised me that his level seemed to settle at League Two and on the bench of League Two sides.
Yeah, but I've been impressed with him so far for Morecambe. I think he's a shining light in that team and an excellent bit of recruitment there for that side. Port Vale conceded late against Salford in a 1-1 draw. 1,400 fans from Port Vale went to this one. Ian Bradley's report is up on the website. Go and check that out because, it's a decent start for Port Vale in a year of transition. So plenty of positives. Obviously not won a game yet, but not lost either. So they'll be fairly positive. Obviously you don't want to draw too many. You want to start getting a few points on the board. But going to Salford, who have a very good side in terms of the squad, that's not a bad result. As is Crawley's 2-2 draw at Scunthorpe, despite Scunthorpe's injury problems and struggles. A good start to the season. I think it's Labala, has scored in each game so far this season for Crawley. Nathan Ferguson, like we said on Twitter, is an excellent purchase from Dulwich Hamlet. They've got this policy at Crawley of signing players from non-league, and it's a bit hit and miss because you can't always turn these players into sort of top League 1 and 2 professionals. Some of them go on obviously to play at a higher level, but I think their ratio of successes is looking pretty impressive, and Gabriele Cioffi is building an impressive side there. Scunthorpe, Abu Bakr Issa, that's an impressive pickup on a free transfer. We'll have to keep an eye on how they do, but they'll be disappointed with the season the start they've made to the season, and rightly so, because yet to win a game, and obviously potentially letting 3 points slip away at home against Crawley in this one. Sol Campbell, he's no more manager in League Two. He left Macclesfield. Not quite sure why. Obviously I was on Love Sport Radio talking to Martin Allen about it. Seems slightly strange, perhaps something.
Well, I'm wondering if there's. I mean, they've obviously got their off the field issues. I'm wondering if an opportunity has been brought to his attention somewhere else, because you hear mutual termination and you tend to think that's essentially it means he's been sacked, but it does seem that it was actually a mutual termination.
It does. It does. It does seem like it was literally agreed by both parties in a very amicable sense. Sol Campbell deserves massive credit for what he has achieved at a club who not only have the smallest budget probably in the league, but also the off-the-field issues he dealt with so amicably as well. Really good job he's done, and he's put himself in the window. So there's going to be quite a few suitors going for him now. Fair play to him for that, because he's proved a few doubters wrong.
I'd have him at Oldham.
well, yeah, exactly. It'd be great to see him at a club with a little bit more ambition, perhaps, and a little bit more ability to back their manager financially. But a great result for them nonetheless yesterday at Northampton, Chris.
Absolutely superb performance. Archibald looked really, really impressive. I think he set up the first goal, scored the winner, a late winner. They actually are really quite impressing me at the moment, Macclesfield, and it's a side that they've obviously got winding up petitions against them. Their squad's pretty thin, and they're just performing really, really well.
Well, we were having a chat about this Archibald signing, weren't we, yesterday at the football, and we really feel he's a player who could have played at a high level, but probably chose to go to Macclesfield because you get guaranteed game time, because technically very good. Obviously signed from Brentford, if you're not aware, and he's looked really solid so far. An excellent start for him. Yeah, Northampton though, Chris, under Keith Curle, what do you think of them?
I mean, it's it's been a poor start for them. They don't look to be too exciting. I think that's as much as I can say about them. There's nothing to shout about, really.
Yeah, not been a good start. I have to say the miss on that rebound from Williams.
Oh God, even I could have finished that.
Yeah, and that,
That's
if
saying
you've seen
something.
Chris play football, then there you go.
He says, having never seen me play football.
No, I've never seen you play football. I hear your stories. I hear your stories. It's always the glory stories I hear. I don't hear the misses like that. But
I played in net last season.
Well, there you go. You're not prolific enough, man. Playing in goal is no excuse.
Yeah, okay.
It's outrageous. But yeah, there you go. So Northampton fans, in fact, if you can tweet us, we'd like to hear your thoughts on this start to the season, because by all accounts, a good bit of recruitment done. We did say we were worried about the creativity. Nicky Adams, probably their most creative player yesterday, hitting the post with a free kick and obviously setting up a goal with one of his sort of loopy corners, which he does so well. But yeah, not been great from them so far. Late Orient though.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, I'd be interested to hear how Warburton's getting on, because I was really, really impressed with him at Stockport.
Yeah, we did say, didn't we, that he'd probably be their more creative talent. Again, Northampton fans, oblige us please on Twitter at D3D4 Football. Leyton Orient 0-0 with Stevenage. Stevenage, massive credit for them.
How did he not have a penalty?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a blatant penalty. He gave the penalty, then didn't give the penalty.
Well, what's the linesman seen that makes a rugby tackle suddenly become a fair challenge?
Maybe he got a little bit of the ball as he barged the player to the ground, and I don't know. The officials at this level I don't want to get into their minds.
No, it's impossible to know. But actually, James Brophy, really talented player, completed more dribbles than any other player at this level. Great data from Instat supplied for us on that one, and very sort of. Well, I suppose Leyton Orient will feel that, given the dominance they had and the fact that Stevenage have got about 11 injuries, they'll be massively disappointed not to win it.
Yeah, I didn't know they had that many players, to be honest.
Yeah, they really are struggling, and Dino Marmria will be. I don't know. I mean, it kind of was ruining their start to the season somewhat, which is hugely disappointing, because they have got, if their players are all fit, a fairly competitive squad at this level. But
I mean, this appears to be their transfer policy: is wait late, get free transfers in.
Yeah, I don't know what Leyton Orient fans are making of their start. I think they'll be fairly pleased. I mean, yes, the defeat to Macclesfield was poor. This game is the one that kind of got away, I suppose. But there's enough there, I think, in that team. I think there'll be. I think the key for Leyton Orient is they need a season of consolidation. They had the glory of their promotion last season and returning to League Two, which is actually probably a league below where I sort of mentally think they should be. They've obviously had the heartbreak of the way they've lost their manager over the summer. So I think a season of consolidation is what they need, and I think that's what they're pretty much getting. I know it's early to say, but I think that's pretty much what they're getting. Yeah, it does look that way. I mean, like I say, 3 games in, it's hard to base too much apart from just analysing what we've watched and what we've seen. Grimsby Town, a stat I put out about Grimsby Town, I was genuinely shocked by this, but James Hampson has won more aerial duels than anyone. I would imagine, I haven't checked the exact figures, but I think he must have won more than anyone in the EFL so far, certainly, because he'd won in the first 2 games of the season 42 aerial duels.
Wow.
I think Eddie Nolan was second with 27. So a huge amount for just 2 games in. And he was probably their most dangerous player again at Forest Green yesterday in a 1-0 Forest Green win. Forest Green did what we expected, Chris. They dominated the possession. Obviously, not necessarily going to get the same amount of goals from sort of Matty Stevens and Aaron Collins that they'd expect to get from Christian Doidge, but Mondale's a player that I've been quite quietly impressed with, and I think Mark Cooper probably has quite a lot of faith in this squad. And yeah, Grimsby, well, interesting again, Grimsby fans at D3D4 Football with what you made of the performance, but certainly I haven't seen anyone suggest that Forest Green didn't deserve the win, Chris.
Yeah, I think the same issue lies with them. I think they're still lacking a goal scorer, as you touched on there. I mean, they only had 1 shot on target all game yesterday. It's gone in, which is brilliant for them, but I think they still need to be creating more chances for me if they're going to compete as highly as we predicted they will.
Absolutely, considering the possession they had was 71%
or something, yeah.
But Al Grimsby, fair play to Grimsby, their counter-attack has really impressed me this season because they had 29% possession or whatever, 13 shots from that. So
yeah, it's not necessarily a bad way to set up. I think that's how we tried to manage the game at Forest Green. We've obviously not got the quality to do that, but I think that's actually quite a good way to manage the game, is to soak up the pressure and try and hit them on the counter-attack, and I think that's going to be the only way to break them down this season.
Yeah, absolutely. There's obviously games thick and fast now. Got some Tuesday night fixtures and again back next Saturday. So we'll be covering all of them on next week's podcast, probably looking a little bit more broadly at the winners and losers of the next 2 rounds of fixtures. But I've really enjoyed the weekend. Lovely to go up to see Bloomfield Road, my first time up there, and lovely to meet the Oxford fans. I think it was Matt and Anthony we sat with. They'll hopefully feature in the vlog when we get that all edited together and put out. But and Carey, a very eloquent Blackpool fan who expressed, I think, and summed up quite well the mood and the feeling at Bloomfield Road and back in the town right now, thanks to the football club being very much on the up. And I'll be writing an article a little bit about that for Football Team News as well later on this week. So I'll put that out on our Twitter account so you can read that. But yeah, thanks, Chris, for another week rounding up all the action.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
And I hope you enjoyed it, guys. You can, as I say, follow us at D3D4 Football. Please give this pod a retweet, share it with your friends and colleagues. If you can, join up to the Patreon campaign. It would be hugely appreciated. And until next week, it's goodbye from us.